Hi guys! Welcome po sa ating channel HUGOT SIPNAYAN. Ako nga po pala si Sir JV, ang inyong math kahugot, at welcome po sa ating channel. So, kung bago lang po kayo sa ating channel, so huwag po kalimutang mag-subscribe at i-hit ang notification bell para maging updated po kayo sa ating mga video lesson at other educational video na ating gagawin. Kung meron po kayong suggestion or komento or nais bigyang pansin na topic para po magawan po natin ng video lesson, maaari nyo po akong i-contact sa mga sumusunod po na social media account na naka-flash sa inyong screen. So guys, maraming salamat po sa bisita. So let's have our video now. So hi guys, welcome po ulit sa ating channel. So for today's video guys, ang ating pag-uusapan is about triangle congruence. Ito po yung pangatlong video natin about triangle congruent postulate, na kung saan ang didiscuss natin guys ay tungkol sa SSS Congruence Postulate or short for side-side-side congruent postulate. So ito po ay bahagi ng grade 8 third quarter, na kung saan ang purpose po natin guys is to illustrate the SSS Congruent Postulate and to prove two triangles are congruent using the SSS Congruent Postulate. So tara guys, let's have our discussion. Now, pag sinabing SSS Congruent Postulate, two triangles are congruent if the three sides of one triangle is congruent respectively to the corresponding three sides of another triangle. Ibig sabihin nito guys, kapag pinag-uusapan natin ang dalawang congruent triangle, dapat yung three side nila ay congruent. So in terms of SSS, kapag yung three side ng isang triangle is congruent respectively to another three side ng isa pang triangle, therefore yung dalawang triangle ay congruent. First side HG is congruent to SN. Kung napasin nyo po yun yung isang marking na to. Ang next natin ay GT is congruent with NY or the line segments. Ito po yung side na yun guys. And TH is congruent with YS. Ito po yung part na to. Therefore, we conclude that triangle HGT is congruent with triangle SNY using SSS Congruent Postulate. Na kung saan, yung tatlong side niya mismo ang congruent. Malalaman nyo guys na congruent ang tatlong side na to base syempre doon sa marking. Kung makita nyo po example na to, may marking po tayo itong blue dito, green, tapos po dito ay red. Pero usually kapag nagbibigay tayo sa test paper, yan lang po ay kulay itim. Ang pinagkaiba lang nila guys yung bilang. Ay di madali po malalaman yung pagbilang. Ito ay isa, dalawa, tatlo. Now, para malaman natin yung iba pang congruent parts niya guys, o yung corresponding parts that are congruent, ang inuuna natin ay yung mga angle. Now, bakit angle, hindi side? Kasi pag side ang inuuna nyo, malilito pa kayo. We start with the angle first. So, paano malalaman yon? Yung katapat na mga congruent na side. Now, para malaman mo yung unang angle, so, titignan mo yung markings ng kanilang congruent part. So, yung congruent side. Yung unang may marking na isa, siya po yung angle A at saka angle D. Kasi katapat nila yung may one marking o yung blue. Okay, may one marking. Then, A is congruent with D. Followed by, noong dalawang marking, which is B at saka E. Kasi katapat nila, ay yung may two markings or yung ating green mark. Okay? So that will be angle B is congruent with the angle E followed by nung may three markings o yung ating red mark here. So that will be angle C at angle F. So nakita nyo naman. Therefore, malalaman na natin yung mga side na given. So kasi nung tayo ay nagkameron discussion about congruent parts, na congruent triangle, inuuna natin lagi yung angle para madali natin ma-figure yung ating mga side. So therefore, AB is congruent with DE. Ito lang po yung ginamit. AB, yun po, DE. So, dating guys ay BC, at saka po EF, tapos ay CA, at saka po FD. Therefore, we conclude that ABC is congruent with DEF. So, para madaling yung malaman yung mga congruent parts ng SSS Congruent Postulate na triangles, unahin nyo muna yung mga angle. And after nun, saka nyo sunod yung mga side. Kasi pag side ang inuna nyo guys, malay nyo, magkamali kayo ng unang letter na babanggitin bago yung sunod. Yun po yung magkakameron tayo ng problema. Kaya po, mas inuuna ko yung mga angle bago yung mga sides. So therefore, after natin kunin yung mga angle, nakita nyo naman, kinuha ko yung mga side. At mas madali po siyang gawin. Okay, so ganun po kunin yung mga congruent parts ng dalawang congruent triangle under the SSS Congruent Postulate. At tandaan nyo guys, yung rotating, flipping, at saka po, iba pang pwede mong gawin sa triangle. Kung napasin nyo po, ito po ay hindi sila magkaparehas ng rotation. Hindi po makaka-apekto sa congruence yun. As long as their three sides are congruent. Now, sa next activity natin, we're going to determine the congruent triangles given under the congruent side under the SSS Congruent Postulate. So, magbibigay po tayo ng mga side, tapos alamin natin kung ano yung congruent triangles out of those congruent side. Example, line segment CG is congruent with line segment FH. Line segment GI is congruent with line segment HJ. Line segment IC is congruent with line segment JF. Ang alamin nyo diyan ay yung arrangement ng letter. Kasi doon po tayo magkakagulo-gulo kapag hindi po tama. So, una nating side is CG at saka FH. Ang sunod sa kanya ay GI. Kung titingnan natin guys, yung dalawa pa lamang na yan po ay CGI. CGI, yung ating triangle. Dito naman, FH, HJ, yan po ay automatic FHJ. At yun po yung congruent triangles. Now, para ma-confirm yung claim natin, tignan mo yung ilalim. Nakita nyo, nauna yung I bago yung C. Ibig sabihin, babalik siya from I papuntang C. Therefore, tama po yung ating claim. Dito naman po, kung nakita nyo, JF, babalik po doon sa F. Therefore, ang ating congruent na triangles is triangle CGI is congruent to triangle FHJ. Now, paano naman doon sa next example natin? Ano tingin nyo yung ating pangalan ng congruent triangles under the SSS? So, under ng SSS guys, therefore, yan ay, so very good. That will be triangle XYZ is congruent with triangle OMN. Kung napasin nyo, same rule will be applied. So, XY, OM. Ay nakita nyo, dito po ay ZX, di nakasunod. Tingin kayo sa baba. YZ, definitely that's X, Y, Z. Tapos mula doon sa Z, babalik ulit sa X. So, po line na to. Kaya po yung naging X, Y, Z. Ito naman, OM. Ang kasunod niya ay MN. Dapat po yan ay OMN. At na-confirm nyo na tama po yung claim ninyo out of NO. Kasi mula doon sa N, babalik po sa O. Therefore, doon natin nabuo yung dalawang triangle na XYZ is congruent with OMN. At ganun po, magpangalan ng congruent triangles out of the given congruent side ng SSS Congruent Postulate. Next natin topic guys ay tungkol naman sa pag-prove. And this time, magbibigay tayo ng tatlong example. How are we going to prove two triangles are congruent under the SSS Congruent Postulate? Now, let's try to read our first problem. Given F as the midpoint of AB and AD, line segment DE is congruent with line segment AB. Now, sabi ko sa inyo, when we're trying to prove two triangles are congruent under any triangle congruent, yan man ay SAS, SSS man yan, o ASA or AAS guys, maalin po sa apat na yon o doon pa sa iba pang given item guys, kailangan tandaan ninyo na kailangan every given statement may puprove kang parts na congruent. At dito, since SSS tayo, we will try to prove that three sides are congruent. So let's start deal with our first statement. Point F is the midpoint of EB and AD. And our proof will be given. Now, anong highlight na word diyan guys? The word is, very good, we're talking about the midpoint. Kung midpoint ang pinag-uusapan natin, therefore makakabuo tayo ng BF is congruent with EF and DF is congruent with AF. We're talking about the line segments or the sides. Ang proofs natin ay definition of midpoint. Now, kung may definition tayo ng midpoint, therefore, kung makikita nyo sa ating picture sa diagram natin, nakita nyo na merong congruent parts. Ito at saka ito, ito at saka ito. Which is ito yung dalawang yon, statement na yan. And therefore, we need only one side para ma-prove na congruent yung triangle na yan. At doon papasok yung ating given. DE is congruent with AB using our given. At therefore, kung nabibilang nyo po, meron tayong 1 mark, 2 mark, 3 mark, 1 mark, 2 mark, 3 mark. Therefore, the three sides are already marked. Meron na po tayong sign na sila ay congruent. And therefore, we will conclude that DFE is congruent with triangle AFB using the SSS Congruent Postulate. Okay? At yun po guys ang magpapadali ng ating discussion about this one. So make sure, tandaan nyo po ulit yung ating mga diniscuss sa inyo na axiomatic system or the undefined terms, defined terms, the axiom, the postulate, and the theorem para mas madali kayong makapag-prove ng mga triangles katulad nito. Okay? So, let's have our next example. And this time guys, nakita nyo po yung triangle natin. Those are overlapping triangles. Nag-overlap yung one triangle to another. Our given is side DA is congruent with side CV. And the line segment AC is congruent with line segment BD. Now, we're going to look for the statement and the proof. So, first natin, AD is congruent with CB. And that will be our marking. Yung green marking po sa tabihan. That will be given. Next item natin guys, AC is congruent with BD. That will be our marking using another given. Now, ano tingin nyo ang kailangan natin i-prove para yung dalawang triangle ay congruent? So that will be DC is congruent with DC, and that will be that part using a reflexive property of congruence. Therefore, we will conclude that ADC is congruent with BDC using the SSS Congruent Postulate. At guys, yun ang nagpapadali ng ating discussion about this one. So, kahit nyo guys, reflexive property of congruence, yan po ay axiom. So, ang maganda dito, one given statement should provide a proof para makompleto natin yung tatlong side na congruent. Okay? Para sa ating next item guys, so given AB and CB are the legs of isosceles triangle ABC. So line BD intersect AC at the midpoint D. Now we're going to fill up the remaining statement at saka ating proofs. O ngayon, So we start syempre with the statement, AB and CB are the legs of isosceles triangle, and our proofs will be given. Therefore, AB is congruent with CB. So ano pong gagawin nating proof doon? That would be a theorem. Yun po yung theorem na legs of an isosceles triangles are congruent. Kaya kung napapansin ninyo, nagkameron po ito ng marking. Kasi po, kung ito ay isosceles triangle, ito po yung base angle, automatic ito po yung legs. And those legs are congruent. Okay? Now, next statement natin, line BD intersect AC at the midpoint D. And the proofs is given. Now, kung meron tayong binigay na proof, therefore, may binigay tayong statement, may proof din tayo, therefore, gagawa ulit tayo ng another part sa congruent out of that. At dun po natin kukunin na si AD is congruent with CD. Since, sabi dito, ang midpoint natin ay D. Okay? So, definition of midpoint, definitely, ito po ay congruent. Kita nyo naman sa marking na red. Now, we're looking for the last part. Ano ba yung last part na nawawala? Yung line sa gitna. So, therefore, BD is congruent with BD using reflexive property of congruence. At doon natin mapuprove na yung tatlong side are congruent under the SSS Congruence Postulate. At ganun guys kasimple kung paano mag-prove ng triangle congruence under the SSS. So tandaan nyo, if we're trying to deal with SSS, dapat yung tatlong side ng dalawang triangles are congruent para masabi na yung dalawang triangles ay congruent. Now, para maintindihan natin ang ating discussion, I'm going to give you this item. So, this will be proving. What you're going to do, guys, to fill up the statement and the proofs para malaman natin whether you understand our discussion about the SSS. So, you have your ball pen and your paper, guys. So, timer start now. Okay guys, time's up. Let's start to answer the following item. So yung una nating missing ay yung proofs. So ano may sagot nyo guys? That will be given. So GH is congruent with HJ. That will be our given. First given. So dito naman sulat nyo guys ay next natin guys. So GI is congruent with JI. Anong proof natin? So definition of line bisector. So I hope tumama po kayo doon. Ang keyword po natin guys yung bisect. Kaya po line bisector. Ang GJ natin guys ay line. Kaya po line bisector. Next guys. So nakita nyo na-prove natin itong statement na to. Tsaka yung line na to ay congruent. Next ay HI is congruent with HI. That would be reflexive property of congruence. And the last one, triangle GIH is congruent with triangle JIH using the SSS Congruence Postulate. And guys, I hope nakuha nyo po yung lahat ng ating nawawalang piraso o nawawalang proof statement para sa ating activity. So that will be how we're going to define or prove that two triangles are congruent under the SSS Congruence Postulate. So remember guys, if we're dealing with SSS Congruence Postulate, hindi to po social security system. So two triangles are congruent if three sides of one triangle is congruent respectively to another three sides of another triangle. Madali naman guys, tandaan yan. Automatic ang SI side, edi tatlong side lang, side. Okay? So I hope you learned something from our video. If you have some question, write it down or just comment it down below sa ating video para maintindihan po natin at mabigyan ko pansin. At syempre, masagot ko na rin kung kayo ay may query. So our next video guys will be dealing with AAS Congruent Postulate or the SAA Congruent Postulates. And I hope I'm going to see you on our next video. God bless po, ingat!